Welcome. Hello. All right. Welcome, everyone. There's probably going to be a lot of beeping while people join because I have ADHD. I guarantee there's going to be a lot of ADHDers. People may join at any moment from now until 1:45. Um, as I just keep hitting the button, I'm going to encourage you all to put yourself on mute, get yourself comfortable. I've actually just done a little breathing exercise just to calm myself down because I'm autistic and talking to a lot of people. Not the most fun thing to do sometimes. So yeah, if you haven't eaten lunch, grab your food. If you want to go off camera, go off camera. It is nice for me to talk to someone. I feel like I'm talking to not myself. So, but do what feels right for you. Thanks for joining. We're going to talk about the EAF Assistance Fund, which is available to neurodivergent people, neurodivergent Australians with a diagnosed condition who also meet the eligibility requirements. It's an awesome service. Most of my clients come through this service. So I'm going to talk you through how to apply, what it is, all about it. But before I do that, I'm going to keep hitting admit and I'm going to tell you who am I? Why am I even doing this? So hi, I'm Annie. I was an executive director. I had a career in program management, technology program management, ended up doing a bit of business transformation consulting, and then had a stroke about 2.5 years ago while I was doing an ADHD coaching course. And as things just happen, and I ended up being a full-time coach. I work with solely with neurodivergent professionals, mostly in Australia, but also across the world. And my clients range from business owners to a product manager, someone working in marketing, lots of people working in finance, lots of lawyers, quite a lot of people in social work and in, I guess, helping and caring professions, and a lot of people working in tech. Now, there is a chat, so I'm going to ask you to maybe just put in the chat what you're hoping to get out of today, just so I can make sure that I cover it. And I'm going to type it because that makes it easier to remember. Cool. All right. So I do mostly one-on-one sessions with my clients where we're working through very specific challenges related to their work. I also run a couple of group coaching programs. I run one on mental fitness for neurodivergent professionals and one called Overwhelmed Organized, which is all about what it says on the tin, learning to be a little bit less overwhelmed. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about what the EAF is, how it differs from other funding, because there's a lot of acronyms that are all very, very similar and it's quite confusing. And also the process is a little bit, there's quite a lot of steps in the process. So I'm going to take you through what the steps are and how to actually get access to the funding, talk about eligibility, and obviously time for questions, because I'm sure all of you have questions. Otherwise, you probably would have just applied for the EAF and not joined this webinar. And if we have time at the end, I'm happy to sit around and you can just click some buttons and maybe start to get your application started. Because as you know, if we have ADHD, it is a lot easier when someone is sitting there on the call with you, maybe even talking to you. All right, so the EAF fund, it's run by a part of the government, the federal government called Job Access Network, and it's all for helping disabled people to be their best selves at work. It's pretty awesome. It doesn't cover just things like coaching, and it is available to, yeah, as I said, neurodivergent and disabled people. I'm going to focus on neurodivergent people because that's who I work with primarily. Not to say that being neurodivergent
Yeah.
is or isn't a disability. And whoever has just
Oh,
joined,
really?
I
You've
would
got to do
encourage
it.
you to please mute yourself. There we go. I think that's all muted. Okay. What was I going to say? So yes, physical disabilities as well as neurodivergence and also mental health conditions. Okay, so here's the acronyms. So we have the EAF, which is the Employee Assistance Fund. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. Now, that is a fund that gives you access to about $1,800 of specialist mental health care support for improving your situation at work specifically. Then you'll have the mental health care plan. Now, this is the plan that you get from your GP. If you go in and you say, hey, I'm feeling pretty stressed and overwhelmed, you can get access to 10 subsidized therapy sessions. And I know that can get renewed. I think it's 10 in a year. Um, you can use a mental health care plan for anyone who was covered by, the acronym has just fallen out of my brain. But anyone who is an allied healthcare provider, like psychology. Then you have the National Disability Insurance Scheme, NDIS. Now, coaching is very, very uncommonly covered under NDIS. In fact, they tried to specifically exclude it back in January this year, and I actually had to stop working with a bunch of my clients. But there are other supports that are available to people in work under the NDIS if you do have the NDIS. Then the most confusing acronym, which is an EAP, which is very similar to EAF. And if you have dyslexia, they probably look like the same. So an employee assistance program is a program that is usually part of your company, the company that you work for. Most companies, or many companies, especially the larger ones in Australia, will all have an EAP where you can call a phone number and you can get access to a therapist completely for free, usually for 6 sessions. They often will have some sort of portal that there might be some mindfulness app, there might be some mindfulness resources, and other resources to help you improve stress. Now, my understanding is that it's pretty uncommon to be able to access a specific neuro-affirming coach on an EAP. I've tried to get on a few EAPs and it was very difficult, in fact, impossible, and I'm not on any EAPs. So that's why the EAF is just a great fun because you can choose whoever you want to work with. Then a lot of my clients also will access coaching through learning and development. So maybe not so much these days because a lot of companies have tightened up their budgets. But if you have access to any sort of learning and development or training funds, a lot of my clients will come through being paid for by their clients. And then, of course, self-funded, where you pay yourself. So the EAF can help you with not just the things that I'm talking about, ADHD coaching. It can also help with equipment and technology and modifications to your workplace. So if you are autistic, that might be changing the fluorescent lights to dimmable lights. It might be getting specific ergonomics that you might require. It might be getting special noise cancelling headphones. It could be, I don't know, if you had a physical disability and needed a wheelchair, it could include things like ramps and widening doors. But there is also an expectation through the EAF that companies will provide general ergonomics that a lot of neurodivergent people need. Then it can also provide Auslan and then the coaching. So it doesn't have to just be an ADHD coach. It can be any sort of specialist provider that would be best suited for your needs. So it could be an organizational psychologist. It could be an occupational therapist. So you are eligible to apply if you have a job and you earn above the minimum wage. You can apply if you are self-employed or you run a business. You just need to have an ABN. And you will provide proof of employment. And also, unfortunately, is only for people who have a formal diagnosis. But I do have some potential ideas on maybe workarounds. I don't know. You have to submit some sort of paperwork that says that you have a diagnosis. A lot of my clients don't have full reports from their psychiatrist or their diagnosing psychologist. And sometimes they may need to apply through a health summary. So a health summary is basically a printout from your GP that will list out all of your conditions. And if it says, ADHD, autism, what have you, you should be able to apply with that. So people come to me to get help through the EAF, basically, when they're really, really stressed out at work. So a lot of my clients are struggling with overwhelm, burnout, very, very low energy. A lot of them come to me specifically because I had a stroke 2.5 years ago, struggle with neuro fatigue. So I'm very, very au fait with managing energy and trying to work. But also a lot around just building sustainable work patterns. A lot of my clients are high achieving, gifted, twice exceptional, diagnosed late in life, have worked very, very hard to get to where they are, not realizing they actually had a disability. And those patterns of working no longer support them. Usually they have a severe burnout or they have recurring burnout, very low energy, and just need to figure out how do we actually do the work thing, knowing that we actually have differing energy limits and fluctuating capacity. Learning a lot of new work skills. So I was a leader for 15 years, managed teams and departments. So a lot of my clients might need some skills on how to manage staff that maybe suddenly been promoted. They might want to learn how to set boundaries or how to present really effectively or how to get a promotion. We'll work through what those adjustments are. So sometimes there are accommodations that they will formally request from their workplace, although the majority of what we're actually working with is adjustments that they make themselves. Getting reasonable adjustments in Australia is quite difficult and quite fraught. And so often we work with whatever is in the sphere of our control. What can we change and what would those adjustments be? And then ultimately figuring out if you get a diagnosis late in life, I got mine at 41, takes quite a lot of time to recalibrate your life after that and then start to, feel confident and successful again. So coaching is a two-way, collaborative, thoughtful partnership where I'm a brainstorming partner, which works really, really well for my neurodivergent clients because a lot of my clients are verbal processors. So I ask deep, reflective questions, help my clients get in touch with what's going on in their subconscious, what are the things that they actually want to do versus what are the things that they are doing. And we work together to define what are the goals that they're trying to achieve with coaching and what would the steps be to get there in a very sustainable, kind, compassionate, and an affirming way. It's not just strategies. I'm not telling my clients what to do because I have a lot of autistic clients. I have a lot of clients with demand avoidance. It just doesn't work. And we do a lot of inquiry about what they've tried, what they haven't. And yeah, ultimately my clients are coming up with where they want to go. I'm just next to them in the canoe saying, hey, I'm over here. Is everything okay? Can I do something to help? What direction, asking them, what direction they want to go in. The challenges that my clients bring to me is pretty varied. And this is probably, for me, one of the most interesting parts of my job because I literally never know what is going to come up in a coaching session. It can be anything from really challenging workplace psychosocial hazards where there might actually be bullying in the workplace. There may be their job. I have quite a few clients who have somehow ended up doing literally two jobs and can't get out of it and need support to get out of that. Not maybe knowing what their job is. And it's very common for my clients to work outside the boundaries of their role. But then when it comes to being neurodivergent, we're working with like the sensory system, getting in touch with emotions, big life transitions, you get married, have a divorce, have a baby, a death in the family, physical illness. That's when our neurodivergent symptoms can really come out and when burnout is more likely. And a lot of the time dealing with dysregulated teams and leaders, neurodivergent people tend to work with other neurodivergent people, and not everyone's diagnosed, not everyone will ever get a diagnosis. But when you are a sensitive person and you absorb energies, it can be quite challenging. So just a couple of case studies about the types of people that I work with. So this person owned their own business. They were in their 40s, got diagnosed, and suddenly were realizing that they were just consistently burning themselves out. And we spent quite a lot of time just working on what's really important. It started with their task list, but usually the task list is just the way into what's actually going on. And we start working around values and figuring out how to actually make, if you come up with a strategy, how do you make that memorable? How does it actually become something that you are able to do? And they were very, very successful. They reduced their effort in work, they set some boundaries, and significantly improved their stress. The second person was a senior middle manager who was really, really struggling with a values misalignment at work and having outbursts. They were quite emotional at work. It was very career limiting. They didn't realize that at the time. They thought they were just ADHD. There was also some trauma in there. There was also undiagnosed autism. This all later was confirmed. And we spent a lot of time working around some breathing exercises, like figuring out how do you just quickly ground yourself when you get that emotional reaction. How do you bring yourself back down so you don't do something that's very career limiting? Um, and the last one was a lawyer who ran their own business. They were absolutely just at the end of their tether. They were done. Everything was too hard. And we spent a lot of time working on what do they actually like doing? What are they good at? What are their strengths? And then shaping their role around their strengths. And then figuring out what tasks do they want to offload to their team because they had a team of about 10 staff. So the funding amounts, I mean, the one that's really important on this is that, and that number is wrong. I'm pretty sure it is $1,842.77. They just increased it. So you can access that in a 12-month period and then you can reapply at the end of the 12-month period again. And you can access up to 67 grand for workplace modification. So if you are autistic or thinking about maybe I do need some lightings changed, please know that there is funding that could be available to you. So applying, there's a few steps, and this is where a lot of my clients get tripped up, especially when they're really, really burned out. So you go to the Job Access website, you create a new registration, and then it gets linked to your MyGov. Now, sometimes there are bugs with that connection, and my clients can't get past that first step. However, the EAF have a phone number, and they're not like Centrelink or NDIS or any other Australian service. You can actually get someone on the phone pretty quickly and start to figure out how to bug fix it. You need to enter some personal details. You can add a nominee. So if you are really burned out and you need help, maybe you might have a partner or someone that you would like to support you through the process and you can have them as your nominee. Then you list out what specific things you are requesting, and then you add your documentation that you're going to use to support your application. So it's quite Word docy. There's a few Word docs that you need to fill. The first application is through the portal, and then there's some Word docs to add. So there is a proof of employment form that you will send to access the specialist mental health care support. You will upload a one-on-one support request information document. Now, for my clients, I fill that out for them. My clients, they book a session with me. We figure out what their goals are, what their challenges are, what they're looking for. I create a strategy for them based on what I've heard, and then I fill out their EAF document. They then upload that to the portal, and that process of funding is between the person who applies and them rather than the coach. Now, if you run a business, you will also need to upload some sort of documentation that proves that you earn more than the minimum wage. So for most people, that might be a quarterly BAS statement and also some timesheets. And that's the question, the kind of the info dumpy part. The next part, I've got like actual screenshots where I can walk you through it because sometimes it can be quite overwhelming if you don't know what you're getting yourself into. But I am just going to scroll through the questions. And if you do have a question, you can either pop it in the chat and or you can use the hand raise feature and you can come off mute and ask a question if you feel comfortable. Otherwise, I'm just going to quickly go through here and make sure that I've asked your questions. So, Kyle, hopefully I've answered your question about how to access the funding and what help you can get out of it. Okay, this is a good question. How can we support employees in applying to the EAF? So I have some like posters, resources that can be popped into your manager toolkit. I have a poster that you can print off and put up in your break room, which just says, that are you struggling with these problems? There's a fund that's available. And that's probably one of the best things. Also, I'm more than happy to come to people's place of employment and talk about how ADHD coaching can help your staff. Okay, so struggling neurodivergent person working full time. Yeah. So this service should be available to you, Liz. I know, getting access to things like NDIS is a real challenge. Even though I can't work full time myself after having a stroke, I did not get access to the NDIS. So yeah, it's pretty challenging, but this fund is amazing. Now, it does take a while to get access to funding, and they don't do retrospective approvals. What that means is, so I do packages with my clients. My experience is that one-off sessions when it comes to coaching is not enough of a commitment for most ADHDers or autistic people. They need this kind of consistent and agreement that they're going to make some steps to work towards their goals. What that means is the EAF funding gets approved. I will invoice them for a package, usually 6 sessions, although it could be 12 or it could be 24. And then once that invoice is paid, I send a summary of that invoice that shows that it's paid because then you send that to the EAF to get reimbursed directly. So they don't pay me, they pay you. I feel like there was something else I was going to say in there, but I can't remember what it was. So maybe it will come back. Okay, can you explain again about the mental health care plan? Um, Look, that's not my area of expertise, but it is my understanding that it can be for not just like a general CBT psychologist. When I used a mental health care plan when I had one of my biggest burnouts, I was specifically working with an executive organizational psychologist. So I guess it just depends what your GP suggests is the right thing for you. You can also use it for things like EMDR therapy, which is something that a lot of my clients with trauma benefit from. And often we get to a point in coaching, usually about 2 or 3 sessions in, where it becomes very clear that the trauma is the main thing that's in the way. I myself have complex PTSD. It really sucks. Um, and getting EMDR can help with the emotional triggers, it can help with sensory sensitivities, and it can help with just general well-being and clearing out a lot of these triggering memories that often we might find ourselves experiencing at work. Okay, would it be possible to clarify the difference between adjustments and accommodations? Yeah, good question. I think I use those two words interchangeably. Um, Although maybe there is a difference. When I'm thinking of workplace adjustments, I know reasonable adjustments is the term under the law. Now, they're not always legally required to make those. So there is an expectation that it's within business availability. It's like doesn't cause undue hardship to the business. So sometimes that can be a challenge. Accommodations, I would see, I guess an adjustment would be to me something like more like flexible working, whereas an accommodation might be more something like having only email stand-ups, if that's a thing that you do in your organization, having whips. Although honestly, I think they're the same word. I think they mean the same thing. So I see them as anything that someone gives you to help you make your job better, some change to your role, as well as things that you allow yourself to do, which might be boundaries or shutting down your laptop at 5 p.m. every day without fail. So, can you only access the EAF funding once? You can absolutely access it more than once, but only after the 12-month period. So, once you get approved, and so again, like I said, I work with packages with my clients. Once that invoice is sent and paid, if you left your employer, then you've still got access to that funding. But you do need to obviously have a job to apply for the funding. When you transition to another job, once that funding is approved and your invoicing is done, it's all good. You can just access that funds. I hope that answers your question, Sarah. Roxanne wanted to know more about the EAF. Let me know if there's any other questions that you have, Roxanne. I'd be happy to answer them. Okay, is it better to get a diagnosis report from psychiatrist or health summary just as good? Honestly, I'm not sure. I don't see the paperwork that my clients upload, although I do have clients where I've suggested get a health summary and then we've started working together. So I would say either. It doesn't matter. I mean, look, this is just from a personal vibes. I did submit my full autism report to the EAF. I'm actually quite uncomfortable that they have that. That's just me. I would have rather have just sent a summary of my diagnosis. Are there any limitations or other certain criteria for the type of workplace modifications I could get? i.e., if I need a chair, does it need to be valued lower than a certain amount? Now, I'm not sure about that. I would suggest, Alex, that you have a look at the full EAF guidelines that is on the EAF website. I'm going to give you a very uninformed guess of an answer, which is I would say if you need a chair, the EAF is probably going to say your employer has an obligation to buy you a chair. They don't need government funding for that. They should just be buying you a chair. Unless it is a very specific chair that is different to everyone else's and is specific to your condition. How many sessions would you get for the funding? Okay, so I can see there's maybe two questions in there. So I'll start with the first one. So the funding is $1,842.77. Now, my packages of six are 1,860 plus GST. So there's a little bit of gap payment there. However, obviously, if you are self-employed or run a business, you can claim that GST back because I'm GST registered myself. So usually through the EAF funding, you get 5 and a bit sessions for free and just have to pay the gap. And also curious about the workarounds you mentioned if someone isn't diagnosed. Okay, so the workaround was me specifically making mention to not having a full report. If someone is not diagnosed at all, the chances of them accessing the fund is pretty low. However, the funding is also applicable to mental health conditions. I don't have any clients who have applied through a mental health condition just like anxiety and depression, but the funding does say that it is available to do that. So if they have anxiety and depression, and those are the things that they're struggling with at work, I would recommend get a letter from your GP and see what you can do to access the fund because free money is free money. Um, so I think that's all the questions. Happy to answer any more if you do have any more. Now I'm just going to quickly show you what the screens look like. And then if you've got any more questions while we go, pop them in the chat. So It's a very 1990s looking website, but you're going to go in here with the link that was in the slides, and you're going to go and create a login new registration, unless you have previously applied for the EAF and you already have an account. If you are, sorry, can't see my screen. You're going to connect it to MyGov, and this is where things will either go completely smoothly or you may end up on a phone call. Okay, so then you're going to start your EAF application, and then there's going to be a bunch of terms and conditions that you have to read and accept. There's a little privacy notice, and then you're going to choose the type of application, so employer or self-employed. This is where you start to add in your information, so just your basic contact details on the first page. And then on the second step, you can add a nominee. So let's say you were really, really burned out and you needed your partner to help you. This would be a good place to add a nominee. Then you're going to put in your employer information. Excuse me. And this is where you're going to start to add your items. So once you get into step 4, you will click Add Item. And in the drop down, you're going to choose Specialist Mental Health Support for coaching. And if you need to add something else, so let's say you were going to look at lights or a specific chair, then you would use that in the other fields. Okay, so then you're going to choose employer, so reimbursement type. I don't know why it actually says that because it doesn't make sense. They reimburse you directly to your bank account. You're also going to put in your amount. So this is I feel like I've been actually saying the wrong amount this time. Now I'm questioning myself. I thought it was 1,842. Anyway, I'm going to have to confirm. So you're going to put in your maximum funding. That's the funding for that 12-month period. And then once that's approved, you can use it. Some of my clients will put in, $400 for this and $500 for that. And it might be, a little bit tricky. And then you're just going to submit it. So then you've got some certification documents. And then you have to upload your supporting documents. So once you get back to this main page, you will go down to the bottom where it says application processing, click on documents and attachments, and then you're going to add your additional documents, which includes the one-on-one support request that I complete. There is another evidence of employment document that your employer will complete. Now, if you have not disclosed at work, the EAF does say they prefer people to have disclosed, but it's not always safe to do so. Sometimes my clients do actually get actively bullied out of their employment after they disclose. So you want to be safe. And if you need an exemption, I would recommend that you call and ask for an exemption. And that's it. That's the slides. So if you have any other questions, actually, I just saw that there's one here. Roxanne just found out I couldn't log into MyGov on a PC, it times out. Yeah, okay. Um, Not sure I can help you with that one, unfortunately. That's definitely a call to the EAF, and they have a
Yeah,
1-800 number on their phone.
sorry, not really a question. It was just a comment that I
Mhm.
found. That's all.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Hi, Nick.
Hey, how you doing? I just had a look on the EAF website and it's $1,682.77 inclusive of GST. So just thought I'd help with that one for you.
No, I appreciate that because what that means is I have somehow got it into my head 3 weeks ago for no reason whatsoever. Anyway, I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so just assume the slides were correct from the start. So that's all the slides that I have. If anyone's got any other questions or maybe you want to get started, happy to have a chat.
might reach out separately and organize for us to catch up and come into the office and have a bit of a chat with our DEI team as
Yeah,
well.
that sounds great. We,
Awesome.
yeah, cool. All right, well, I will look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you.
Okay, Sarah asks, what field would you select for sensory adjustments? Good question. Let me go back. I personally would put that under other. Yeah, that's where I will put it under other. I hope that answers your question. You're very welcome, Michelle. Look forward to speaking to you soon and good luck with your application. All right, Alex, if you've already been approved for the EAF, okay. So sorry, I'm going to read out the full question. If we have already been approved for the EAF and just need to fill out the one-on-one coaching form, do we book an appointment with you? Okay, so what I have found is that sometimes, honestly, the vibes aren't right between a coach and a client. And sometimes my clients come to me wanting, help with how they communicate at work, and actually maybe the most appropriate person for them is a speech pathologist. So I always recommend we at least have a quick chat and just check that we are, it's the thing that you're looking for. I'm the right person and you feel comfortable with me. Because you need to feel comfortable with someone who's asking you big questions about your values and your thoughts and everything that's going on inside your mind and your body. So also you do have the one-on-one coaching form. Now, I guess the benefit of meeting with me is that I am pretty familiar with what they approve and what they don't, because sometimes they reject things and then I have to tweak my writing and then I have to submit it. I had one client where we had to go back and forth 4 times to get approval, which was pretty frustrating. So I guess the benefit of us having a chat is that hopefully, fingers crossed, you'll get approved straight away. With the application, how the process works is usually you start that application in the portal, maybe a month later, it's quite slow. 2 weeks, 4 weeks later, you might get someone from the EAF who review your application, they review your documents, and then they will send you 2 forms to fill out, an evidence of employment doc and the one-on-one support request. What I say with my clients, let's meet first. If you think you want to apply for the EAF, I'm just going to get you your one-on-one support request ASAP. So when they go to review your application, you can get approved straight away rather than having to go back and forth over email and filling out more docs. So the way that I work with my clients is that, I'm just going to go to the next slide, is I start with a 1 hour coaching session that is paid and separate to the EAF so that you can experience a full hour of what coaching is like. Because I would say most of my clients don't know what to even expect because coaching is kind of a random amorphous word and it can mean many things to different people. But my background as a leader, I focus on a coach. I'm really just helping people and guiding them to their own answers and questions. For clients who want to meet with me soon, want to apply quickly, I think I have about a 1 month wait at the moment for new workplace success strategy sessions because I always need to hold space for in my calendar for my clients who are in the process of getting approved for the EAF. Because what will happen is no one gets approved. None of my clients get approved for like 6 weeks, and then suddenly 10 clients get approved. So I've got to have space in my calendar for them. But if you wanted to get your application done quickly, I do offer a 15-minute session where I'm just quickly asking some questions. I'll fill your form out for you, and then you can get your application underway. That was a really long way to answer your question to say yes, ideally, because I think it just means that we're just making sure that, like, I wouldn't want you to get funding approved and then find out that I'm the wrong person for you, because that would, be a shame for you because it's precious, precious funding. Okay, you want to apply. If I want to reach out for you for anything, do I just email you? Of course. So my email address, hello@anniemoller.com. That is my inbox. You'll get access to my assistant, Jessamine, who will help you with the process of getting through the EAF. And then once we get into coaching, we're actually meeting. That's when we'll be having conversations. But if you need anything at all, just reach out. Someone will get back to you because I need help with my own executive dysfunction. So I look forward to hearing from you, Liz. So I know we've only just got a couple minutes left. If there's any final questions. Okay, just double checking. So if we access coaching and sensory adjustments, all of that needs to come from the 1600. No. So the 1600 is for the specialist mental health care support, and then you can access up to $67,000 on top of that for physical adjustments and other adjustments. So yeah, so the 1600 is just for coaching. If anything end up costing outside of the 1600, is that for us to pay out of pocket? Yes, that is correct. So with my six-session packages, there is a small out-of-pocket amount. It's a couple of $100 just, and you get six sessions out of that. But the idea of the 1600 is support you in accessing some support, and that support depends on what you need and are requesting for. That is correct. So some of my clients might be autistic and also have a physical disability, so they could be having some very different access forms to send to the job access. Okay. I think I'm a bit confused. So if you apply for the EAF and are approved, they transfer you the $1,600 and then you use it to help cover the cost of the supports and adjustments that you need. Or do you need to specifically request, I want funding for this, and then the EAF pays me each time I upload an invoice for that support, similar to the process of being self-managed on the NDIS. Yep, it's the second one. So you send them a paid invoice. So it can't be an invoice that's unpaid. It has to show that you've already paid it, and then they reimburse you directly into your bank account. Yeah, thanks for sharing the guidelines, Nick. They're a long read.
It's an understatement.
Yeah. And it's a challenging process to get through. Like I have clients that it sometimes takes them a whole year to get to their application because they're so exhausted and burned out. And there's just so many steps, unfortunately.
Yeah,
But free money's free money. So you do what you can when you can do it.
absolutely.
What if they sent your application and you've paid an invoice? Maybe I missed a pre-approval step mention. Oh, sorry, what if they deny your application and you've paid an invoice? So that's why I don't invoice any of my clients until they have confirmation from the EAF that they have been approved for the funding. Because there's two approvals. First of all, you get accepted into the fund. So you send your app, you do your application through the portal, it gets reviewed, your application gets reviewed, you get accepted into the fund, and then once you have all of your request, your item request documentation sent, then you get approved for that funding. And that's when I invoice. And then once you get a copy of that paid invoice, you submit it and you get reimbursed. Thank you. I went through this application process in November last year and didn't look into the one-on-one coaching. I only realized that the coaching was from your TikTok. Oh, hello. I'll send an email through. Yep, and maybe have the 15-minute conversation. Absolutely. Yeah, we can have a quick 15-minute call and I'll just quickly whip up the one-on-one support request and then you can get that rest of your funding because if you got approved last November, that means that your funding officially expires for this period in whatever the month is before November. I can't do backwards things. And you would need to submit your invoice before then. And then next November, you can reapply and get access to it again. And that's it. So, all the best with getting your applications in for the EAF. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from you, Nick and Alex, around how I can support you. And I will. Oh, hang on, one more question. Sarah, how much is the cost of your sessions? Yes, it is on the fees page. If you go to About, there is a fees page, and you can look through my fees there. Because I do run quite a few different programs, so they're all on there for you. And enjoy the rest of your Friday, and I will chat to you soon, maybe, hopefully.